very focused on execution. We've got these great assets. We need to sort of go out there and put some points on the board. And despite the fact that we're well capitalized, that is very much our focus. Now, I'd hate to say we're not going to do anything. I mean, if something really interesting from an opportunistic standpoint came up, maybe, but it's a really high bar. We like the category that we're in, where it's, good gross margins, high barriers to entry, recurring nature on the revenue side, and the suite of assets. So I think you should think about us in aesthetics as we kind of have what we want on our plate to go get after. Certainly over time, we're trying to build a great company, and so we'll be more open-minded, but we really like the sector that we're in.
Okay, now turning to therapeutics, the organization has done a wonderful job of pushing these programs down into the clinical development and really elucidating the benefits and the longer acting. And I think it's almost intuitive. Obviously, if you have stroke spasticity, having to go to the clinician less and getting relief longer. Same thing, cervical dystonias. I think we could go chapter and verse with every indication. It's quite clear. On the flip side, it's also, and I think you probably appreciate this more than most, to have an organization in the therapeutic area be able to give full focus and really be able to drill down in depth. So you're really unveiling the value, but can you talk strategically now how we go from, showing the value to maybe taking it to the next step of maximizing the value, and maybe how you think about that balance?
Sure. Well, I think as you noted, I mean, last year was a big sort of R&D year for us, given the three different clinical programs that we had going on with cervical dystonia, plantar fasciitis, and upper limb spasticity. And as a small company that wasn't generating revenue, you do have to make some trade-offs, which is why we talked about things like migraine of, it's not an if, it's a when, right? So you got some big markets. The nice thing with sort of our neuromodulator product is, we don't lose that opportunity going forward. It's just a question of when do we kick off sort of the trials and go after that. And we also said that, we need to kind of get through these trials to help better inform our therapeutic opportunity going forward. We were certainly hopeful that we would see, good safety and efficacy with a duration profile similar to what we've seen on the aesthetic side. And that's what we've seen here. And so as we think about the therapeutic market, it's bigger than the aesthetic market for neuromodulators, right? And when we've done our market research, because of the pharmacoeconomics involved in therapeutic treatments, where you've got, physician fee, facility fee, and everything else, longer duration has a much more meaningful impact in terms of the lowering the overall cost. And so we feel really good about sort of the product profile and what that can mean in the market. Obviously, we're trying to look about, where do we have the center of gravity, right? How many different areas do we want to be in? But starting with cervical dystonia, upper limb spasticity, if you look at, the US, for example, with, a sales force of 30 to 60 reps, you can do a pretty good job of calling on a lot of the muscle movement specialists within neurology and having that all together and create some core critical mass. Cervical dystonia being the furthest along of our programs, where we are completing the open label study, safety study enrollment. We said, complete that this year, file next year, approval in 23. We're now starting to get line of sight to a commercializable product in North America, which will then, we feel, start to get us a lot more credit for the therapeutic side of it. In terms of how we think about it strategically, do we partner it? What do we do there? There's a couple of thoughts that we have in mind. One is we want to maintain the integrity of the pricing, because there's pricing on aesthetic and therapeutic that have some linkage. We want to make sure that we're optimizing the brand. And we want to be mindful of where we can build critical mass. And so now that we've got the information from these trials, we'll be spending a lot more time kind of working our way through that. In fairness, we've got a partnership in China with Fosun, right? So we recognize that that's probably a market that is better partnered. And so we really like sort of the partnership that we have there. Having said that, we're in no urgency to do anything either. We can continue to unlock the value, sort of watch this sort of play out over time. And we think that, from that perspective, time's on our side, and that we'll continue to see more value unfold from the therapeutic platform as we prove it in the marketplace. So TBD, more work to be done on that, but there's a lot of different things that we're trying to balance here.
Yeah, and clearly, I'm making the statement, not you. There clearly were major suitors looking at Allergan. One finally stepped up and finished the job, and clearly the crown jewel was for that portfolio that you all are hopefully differentiating and improving. And so we just make that comment and remind investors about that you've kept it all whole to a certain extent, except for that partnership, and it still stays whole. So the last question, and you probably thought it would be the first, but I'm saving it to last,
Right.
is on inspection. We're waiting, and I don't know if I surprised you by holding out this long before asking, but any updates you can give us around that, and obviously an unfortunate situation we're all experiencing in your organization. Besides the human level, you're experiencing on a product level, the COVID issue. So you just talk about maybe when we could expect a hopeful resolution or any interactions that could give you any sense of when that might resolve.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot we can say there. On our earnings call recently, we said that, it's typical company policy not to comment on where we are in the agency discussions. I think that there's, periodic communication that the agency puts out and that relates to kind of the industry more as a whole. We did break tradition back prior to our PDUFA date, knowing that we weren't going to have an on-site inspection prior to the time frame. So we did actually indicate that, but we're not a whole lot we can say. We're building inventory. We're anxious to get the product approval. As of the date of our PDUFA date, we indicated at that point in time the only thing that we were aware of that was outstanding was the facility inspection. So we're looking forward to getting on the product on the market as soon as we can.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, with that, thank you so much. I know we're up against the time. We really appreciate the discussion. It was incredibly helpful. So thank you to Mark, Toby, and Jessica for taking the time out of your day to do this.
Great. Thanks, Ken. Really appreciate you having us.
Thanks, Ken.
All right. Take care.
Thank you. Yep.